Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Ehrhart, and I'm the Managing Director for Product Engineering and Professional Services for Accenture Software. And as was just said, I know that many of you don't know of or think of Accenture as a software company, but we do have, in fact, software that we license and sell as on-premise and SaaS solutions to clients in over 10 industry verticals. It's a rather large software product portfolio. In fact, the license, maintenance, and associated services fees from our software business is over $1.5 billion, which makes us one of the giants, actually, in the independent software industry space. And I get the privilege to represent Accenture with our product guys here at this conclave, and I'm delighted to be here. Bangalore is my home for 7 years. As we were setting up Accenture Software in India, we have over 2,000 people in product engineering and services associated with those products here in Bangalore and other cities in India. And so I'm back from San Francisco for a quick visit this time to my old home. And I'm very, very delighted to be back in the community of the software professionals in India. And I can tell you that from what I've seen at the conclave so far, all my friends and associates in the Valley would be very impressed with the level of innovation and entrepreneurism that they see, that they would see if they were here looking at this conclave themselves. So we're delighted to be a sponsor of this event, and I'm very happy to be here with you. And I'd like to take this opportunity to share with you some of the major technology trends that we're seeing that are leading to the emergence of digital enterprises. And these digital enterprises represent both small, innovative companies and increasingly very large, established companies, global companies, are working to define themselves as digital, to be more virtual, to have more reach, to have more depth, to be better connected with everything around them. And I'd like to sort of quickly run through 6 major trends that we're seeing that are leading to the emergence of these digital enterprises. So I've got a short video to introduce this topic, so if you could roll the video now, we'll start with that.
Big companies, bigger ideas, huge opportunities. In this year's Tech Vision, we dive deeper into how big companies are using digital to disrupt and dominate. Digital increasingly determines the destinies of companies in all industries. And as big companies embrace digital strategies, they're starting to flex their muscle. The result? Big companies are not only disrupting their traditional markets, they're entering entirely new ones. In fact, the disrupted have now become the disruptors, and digital is helping big companies rediscover the edge that helped them become leaders in the first place. They've awakened to the power of digital and now have the resources, the scale, and the will to reinvent their business, systems, data, and talent networks. So while the last decade saw the rise of startup stars, the next promises something different, a new era of traditional companies becoming digital giants. We've identified 6 trends helping big companies become newly competitive and shaping the digital landscape ahead. This year, we look deeper into how real-time links between people and machines are helping companies react more intuitively and more intelligently. We reveal how companies are gaining the skills and insights they need by tapping into crowds of contributors around the world, making any internet user a potential strategic resource. As data becomes increasingly vast and valuable, we take a look at how companies are breaking down silos and putting data to work across their entire organization. The rise of massive cloud data centers, Moore's Law, and new hardware and software architecture means hardware is once again driving innovation and requiring investment. Companies have realized applications are the lifeblood of any digital business, so they're learning new techniques to build their own apps with a focus on speed, agility, and the user experience. Finally, the need for always-on business is leading companies to build their vital systems to adapt and their businesses to continue during failures. The digital power brokers of tomorrow are putting these trends to work today. See where your organization could be headed. Get the full report at accenture.com/technologyvision.
Thank you. So, I have about 15 minutes here. Could cover each of these trends in an hour presentation or much longer, depending on your interest to delve into them. But I'm going to reserve my comments to about 30 seconds for each of them and then spend a little bit more time talking about applications, which I think might be the most relevant area for this group. But what I'd like to do as well is try to illustrate why I think each of these trends is relevant to the software industry and to software products and the design and architecture of your software products as well. So let me just quickly run through them again. Again, the digital physical blur represents the trend that everything is becoming effectively, it has a virtual manifestation, almost a software manifestation, and that's every product. So the advent of wearable computers, the advent of intelligent objects, of smart buildings, and other technologies means that effectively every product has a software component to it. Now that means a huge opportunity for a crowd focused on software products because we get to tag our product or build our product and create the virtual representation of products and services and make that available through software, through apps, essentially taking advantage of huge new marketplaces. Right? If you think of the Tesla as my favorite example, the Tesla is remarkable technology, truly innovative, but in fact, the core component of Tesla in almost every element of it is software. And it really represents a software product as much as any other type of product, especially with their intelligent autopilot facilities and things like that are getting built into the product. So key message behind this one, huge opportunities, and we need to be looking beyond business transaction systems, and I know that many of you are from what I saw outside. From workforce to crowdsource, talks about the fact that the boundaries of enterprises are completely blurring. Right? It is almost impossible to define an enterprise based on its physical location or its employees or any other boundary that you would like to draw around it. Enterprises are tapping into talent networks. They're making use of SMEs, sort of contractors by the minute, other contributors, crowdsourcing ideas, crowdsourcing product development. Open source software is a good example of this, inviting others to contribute to the software that's powering your enterprise. Again, a huge opportunity for all of us in the software product business to both target that, take advantage of that trend, and build that into our products, but as well leverage that ourselves. Many of us are resource constrained, and the fact that there are others in our ecosystem who are willing to contribute to us and to our products is a huge potential accelerator and asset for us. The next trend, the digital supply chain, relates to effectively the exact same idea, but as related to data. Essentially, it says that data cannot be thought of as any type of a static object or something that you operate on in a database. It means that data has a life cycle, and it carries through, and it lives with the product, and it needs to be maintained, and in fact can be harvested and analyzed and be used for decision making throughout its lifetime while the data is within your enterprise and as it goes out into your customer base. And we need to be prepared and have products that harvest that data back and draws insights and conclusions from them and then provides that back to our customers in forms of insight and increased value. The next trend is about harnessing hyperscale. And what this says is essentially that Moore's Law is continuing on its relentless pace, both in terms of CPU power and in storage capacity and things like that. And what we're seeing, quite ironically, is that large enterprises that need huge resources, that need huge amounts of compute power and storage, 5 years ago started to look to the cloud to have access to that and to tap into that as a resource external to their enterprise. Of course, 5 years in Moore's Law time means that they can now afford it and are doing it themselves, building these massive infrastructures within their enterprise and are making it available for all the problems that they're trying to solve. So as a software product company, you need to be asking yourself, what problems can I solve for my customer if I have unlimited resources? If I have as much resource as I could possibly use, how could I use it and what could I use it for? And that's essentially the principle or the concept behind things like SAP's HANA architecture, right? Assume that you can put all your data real-time virtually, in accessible memory, and what can you do with that? What insights can you draw from that? I'm going to skip business of applications because I'll dive into that in a little bit more detail. The last point is about architecting for resilience. As these enterprises become more virtual, more interconnected, connected to suppliers, connected to our customers in real time, available and accessible via applications that the users are expecting to be always available, always there, always available to them, this interconnectedness obviously represents a huge challenge in terms of availability and in terms of security. And most enterprises don't have the architecture, skills, or capacity to address that. So what they're doing is leveraging the best practices that have already been forged and are available by following the giants in the industry. So development practices, or the way that Google gates software going into production, or the way that Netflix tests for resilience using its Chaos Monkey. These are well-documented processes, and in fact, many tools available as open source that we can tap into and make use of, so we don't have to solve these problems ourselves. We can effectively leverage that idea of an extended enterprise to address those challenges. So let me spend a few more minutes on the business of applications. I think that's probably the most germane to this audience. Of course, large-scale software, core software applications are going to be present in major enterprises for the foreseeable future. But what we're seeing is a very pronounced trend towards more smaller, more modular apps that are deployed at a point of need or to solve a specific problem within an enterprise. And these apps are coming from everywhere. They're not coming through IT. IT is barely keeping up as a gatekeeper as these apps get deployed into their enterprises. And the most enlightened of the enterprises are actually setting up app stores where they can actually test and check the security and do other controls to make these apps available, because the demand from within the enterprise is so strong for these, and they really need to manage their availability and distribution in the enterprise. But there's a couple of other things that I think are very important for software product companies behind the idea of apps. And that is that there are now emerging, I think, very, very capable platforms as a service. So Microsoft services, Salesforce, Force.com services, are becoming very mature, robust infrastructures, essentially, for us to build applications on. And so, we used to spend a lot of time, energy, and effort, a lot of hours, a lot of debugging, a lot of architecting, trying to put the infrastructure underneath our applications, when in fact, the real value for our customers is the functionality, the problems that we're solving on top of that architecture. So every software company really needs to be asking themselves, where should my product begin? What should I rely on? What should I tap into for the ecosystem? And where does my product end? And what do I want to tap into from around the ecosystem? So 2 weeks ago, I was at Dreamforce, Salesforce's annual gathering, I would call it, in San Francisco. There were 140,000 people there. San Francisco's population is 800,000, right? So there was 20% increase in the city, and it felt like it when you were there. And these people are maniacal. They were crazy about, this platform. And half of the people were probably customers and users of Salesforce, but the other half were partners. And they were demonstrating 300, 500, insane numbers of applications just built on top of Force.com. And they were all there saying how they're using Heroku as their mobile platform, how they're waiting to adopt Wave, their analytics service was announced at the conference, and then all of their partners were there to demo their Wave applications, right? So, we really need to think, if you have an application, how many of you have applications that have customer data in them? Oh, yeah, okay. I would assume an awful lot of our products have customer data in them. I can tell you, you will run into Salesforce whether you like it or not. And you can choose whether you want to be part of that ecosystem and ride with them and just focus on the functionality of your application, or whether you want to, you solve a problem that they don't solve and you can survive on your own. But these are important choices as we decide how big do we want to package our apps, how do we want to encapsulate them and make them available. So I'll come back to a little bit more detail on that. The other thing that I want to talk about is how are we seeing the software companies evolve, right? For many of you who are part of ISVs, and for many of the products which Accenture has acquired, so we buy software companies when we see a strong demand for a solution in a particular industry group. So more than half of our product portfolio was acquired companies. But how we've seen our own IP evolve and how we're seeing the industry evolve is, obviously there's some people that are out there in industry, working in that industry, they identify a need or a problem, and they start putting together some ideas, some assets, some algorithms that address that problem. And ultimately, if they sense that there's more demand than their current customer base, in fact, it's a common problem to the industry, they commercialize that as software, right? So voila, you have an independent software company. Now, that model has served us great for 20 years, right? So we've all been doing that. We've all lived off of that. We've sold it, licensed on-premise. Many of us have converted to SaaS-based solutions. And so we've got software company and we're selling software. So if we assume for the vast majority of solutions that we're going to be making them available as a SaaS solution to our customers, all of a sudden, you're not a product company anymore. You're a services company. Right? Whether you want to be or not. Now you've got a choice to make there, or an opportunity as well. Do you continue as a services company, or do you expand the services that you provide around your software and help the customer with their processes? Provide an analytics. What services do you put around your software? And then you have the challenge of how do you want to price it? And I can tell you that this is a very important area, because user-based pricing, when your new user community is the enterprise and all of its customers and everybody who downloaded their app, and they may be very casual, intermittent users that have no value potentially to the customer, you can't price it based on users, right? You can't price it based on servers, right? Your servers are virtual. You don't know how many they are. You can't keep track of them, whatever it is. It's all virtual. So what we found to be effective is pricing it based on business outcomes. So our solution, Accenture Mortgage Cadence, which works in the loan processing industry, we price that software based on closed loan applications. And that means that we don't get paid for about 75 or 80% of the work that we do, because 75 or 80% of the loans never make it through from origination to closing. But that's all processed on our system. But the point is that the loan company only gets paid when they close a loan. And so our pricing is tied to their revenue, right? We generate value for them. We get paid from that revenue. And that's, I think, a very powerful model for pricing in the industry. All right, I'm going to talk just a couple more quick solutions or a couple more quick examples that illustrate a few of the other trends. Accenture Video Solution helps video content owners and video network owners monetize their video assets. So it provides for the user management, the streaming, and access to that content across any device, handheld, tablet, PC, whatever it is. Many of you, I'm guessing, are users of AVS. Who all watches cricket on Star TV? Anybody? Okay, congratulations, you're a user of AVS. That system provides access or controls the access to that video content. And I hope it always works for you. The point I want to make here is about architecting for resilience. We're hoping in Accenture software that this is our first solution with a billion user base. So that's really why we're anxious or eager to work with Star. And that means that we have to have some very, very clever ideas about what we do with this application to make it available and to make it resilient under extreme loads, which are very specific, high volume, high points of time. So a thought for everybody out there. Another quick example, that I think will be relevant for all of you. Accenture Cast is a CRM application in the consumer goods space. So it helps consumer goods companies sell to retailers and distributors. This is sold to major players in consumer goods industries. One common feature of all of those players is every single one of them has SAP installed. Every single one of them has access to similar functionality from SAP. But they buy this solution anyway. And they buy it because this solution serves consumer good companies, period. It has a market of one industry and is deep and extremely targeted at that industry. So as you're looking at your products, thinking about your direction, figure out whether you want to solve one problem very well for a targeted user base, or if you need to be a broader, a more general solution. Also, as a smaller industry-focused solution, we can innovate faster. So we have a mobile app that allows the distributors to go in, take a picture of their products on the retailer shelf. That is automatically assessed against a planogram, which is what that shelf is supposed to look like, and instructions are given to the retailer about how to adjust their presentation so that they can meet the contract and generate more sales. So a win-win type solution that's all based on a mobile app. Finally, we've got a similar solution also in consumer goods in the CRM space, but this one is targeted at emerging markets. And this one exists only as an app. So there's obviously server components of this on the cloud, but this is to help distributors manage very, very small retailers in Africa, India. Dabur is a major user of this application as an example. And its only platform that it's available on is a mobile device as an app. So I hope that I was able to just give you a sneak peek at a couple of these trends and express why I believe they're relevant to us as software companies, recognizing that our clients want to and our customers want to become digital enterprises, and all of our products can help them leverage these trends to become digital enterprises. And so I want to wrap up here and save a few minutes, I hope, for questions. But I hope that that was helpful for you, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the conclave with you all, and hope that at least in this small portion of the Indian technology community, you see Accenture as a product company in addition to a services company. Thank you.
So Jim, the first question I have for you was, one of the 6 boxes you had was the data supply chain. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit more? A lot of companies here are looking at data as a service, big data, data analytics. What's your perspective? You have a unique one.
Yeah, no, I think that it is a major, major change. Just in terms of access to the information that the users need and ability to draw insights from that information, the IT has not been able to keep up with that. So what we're seeing is that there are dozens of applications that can look at static databases or at transaction logs, for example, and to draw insights from that data. Now, to do that, frankly, you've got to know which problem you're trying to solve or which questions that you're trying to answer. And I think that that's where the great opportunity for people here who have an industry focus, but also understand the technology and understand analytics, where they can really make an impact, right? Most companies simply don't know how to manage the data, and they don't know how to structure the questions and structure the queries that are going to get them the insights that they're looking for.
Great. Any more questions for Jim here? Oh, right here in front.
Yes.
Shout
yes.
it out, Will.
I can repeat.
So, as a software product company, right, we are small startups, right? So now, if we have to work with Accenture and want to get our product integrated with an Accenture solution, so how do we get in touch with you?
Okay, you want to repeat it?
Yeah, the question was, if startups here want to kind of integrate with Accenture-based applications, how does one do that? Do you have a partner program, open APIs?
Okay. Yeah, well, there's a couple of ways that we can do it. So if you're in one of the 10 industries that we're serving, so property and casualty insurance, life insurance, consumer goods, things like that, if you're targeting that space, Absolutely, we're happy to have a dialogue to see if there's a complementary solution. Perhaps we can integrate them or collaborate or license. However, there's a million models for how we might be able to work together to help our clients in a particular industry. If you're in an industry where we don't yet have a software product, we may well have either a services activity and a large client base, which is effectively every industry, quite frankly, or we may have a BPO solution already in that space. So when we bought Accenture Mortgage Cadence, we bought it for two reasons. We bought it because it's a great solution, leader in the industry, we sell it as software. But we also bought it because we have Accenture Credit Services, which does loans processing. And so our software powers our own business services. So we take the best thing we can find that gives us the most productivity, and then we apply it to our own services. Right? So if it's an area where we don't already have a product, we may well be interested to partner or to acquire it in order to have a more comprehensive service offering in a particular industry. And we're all available, right? Like in every company, an email is all it takes to start the dialogue.
The other thing, last question, Jim, is we've heard over the course of the day the new trend with large companies like Accenture and others seem to be startup of incubators within your own companies. Anything in that area?
Well, we've always valued innovation. Right? Many of our products are based on our own IP, which came out of self-developed. So we've always had programs in place, sort of structured ways to help foster innovation, to sponsor patents when patents were the way to go with IP. Now we just sort of embed it in the software. So I think that we've always had a pretty good program in order to promote innovation. But it's very interesting. I mean, I'll share an insight with you very, very frankly. It is an awful lot easier to buy a successful software company than to build one. It's just easier, especially Accenture's got about $4 billion in cash. It's low by some of the big guys, in the industry. But, the thing about successful software companies is that have an install base, so that have a user base, is they've sold it once. And so it's met the test. Somebody wants it. Right? And when we come up with ideas ourselves, being clever consultants and all that, we can solve a lot of problems that clients don't have. Yeah. Right? And so, you can spend a lot of money developing solutions that you can end up selling.
That's true. So there are about 1,000 startups here in the audience. Do you want to give them your email address?
Absolutely. James.m.ehrhart@accenture.com.
Okay. Thanks, James.
Sure. Thanks.